Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan Unshuffled, and to my new episode here. I'm going to do another album ranking, and this time for the band Transatlantic. I did a new album spotlight for their upcoming live release that I was excited to talk about, and that sparked an idea to why not rank Transatlantic's discography. I think it's a really good time to do it because they basically are saying goodbye to the band with this latest release. They talk about it like it's the last concert that they'll ever perform, that this could be the end for the band. And so I think it's a notable time to go through their discography, since this is probably the main studio albums we'll ever get from them. And so this could be a little bit of a definitive ranking and show to honor their catalog and what it means to me personally. And as always, I'm not going to delve too deep into this, but this is my opinions only. It's not the definitive rankings. It's just how I feel about them personally. And I can't be wrong about my own personal taste, but I really respect and appreciate that all of you will have different rankings, different orders, different reasons for why you like or not like these albums. So please share them in the comments below, and please treat me with the same respect that I will treat you guys with your list. So thank you guys for that support and for doing that for me. I appreciate it. And I'm going to try to keep this fairly brief. I know I tend to talk long, especially about my favorite bands, but I'm trying to keep this in a little bit of that top 5 format. Since there's 5 albums to talk about, I always do top 5s on Thursday, so this is basically a stand-in for my typical top 5 show. So I'm going to treat it with that kind of a spirit, but of course it'll be a little bit more expanded than your typical top 5. But let's get into it and let me talk about some of my favorite albums of all time, to be honest. So at number 5, I'm going to put Kaleidoscope from 2014. And for this to be the bottom ranked album, it's still a really awesome album, and I think it's a bit underrated. I think it would probably place last in a lot of people's rankings, or near last, probably in the bottom 2 positions, I would guess, for most people. But it's really fantastically made. It's a single disc album. It's bookended by 2 really great epics, Into the Blue and then the title track Kaleidoscope at the end. Then you've got 3 shorter tracks in the middle. You've got 2 more ballad-esque, lighter songs in Shine and Beyond the Sun, which almost acts like an introduction into Kaleidoscope. And then you've got Black as the Sky, which is just a really fun, shorter song that just really, really rocks and is a really fun time. It was really fun to see them perform it live. It just really comes across well in that format. But to me, the big draw from this is Into the Blue. The opening epic is a really underrated, great epic from the band. It's really well constructed. It has some great instrumental moments, has some moments where it cools down, and has some incredible melodies, and they're all playing really fantastically. You even get to hear a little hints of Daniel Gildenlow, who has assisted them on tour. He is doing some vocals on this track as well, so it's cool to get a little extra flavor there. Shine is a really fantastic ballad, one of their best. I really like it. I think it's really beautifully constructed. Kaleidoscope, sometimes the track feels a bit disjointed, and it's like they piecemealed a bunch of different things into one, which fits with the theme of Kaleidoscope. I think that's kind of why they called it that. And it's cool to see the different influences that the different members bring with their different respective parts that they throw into this mix. But maybe that's the one thing that holds this back just slightly for me, is just how disorganized and disorienting this final epic can be, even though all of the different individual sections are all individually fun to listen to. But overall, it's just a really great album that showcases them doing what they do best. I got to see them perform this live a couple times because I saw it in concert when I went with my dad when they played more locally. And then I went to the Progressive Nation at Sea, where they were basically promoting this album there as well, and played pretty much the entire album, I believe. So it was just a lot of fun to hear them play this live and to be excited for it as it came out, and to know that the band was continuing, that the Whirlwind wasn't just a one-off reunion, that they had more in the tank from there. So really fun album and really cool to explore, and I think one worthy of rediscovering for a lot of people who may have forgotten about it and who may dismiss it as one of the weaker Transatlantic albums. Number 4 on my list is The Absolute Universe from 2021. And I fluctuated with this one a little bit. I used to rate it a bit higher than this when it initially came out. I think it's settling into this spot pretty well. I think 3 and 4 are a bit close, neck and neck for me, but The Absolute Universe was a really ambitious project. Really, there's multiple versions of it. And it's interesting behind the scenes because it seems like the band had a bit of a disagreement with what the album should be. Seems like Royna Stolt and maybe Mike Portnoy were on the side of, we did all this material, it's a double disc, it's going to be this big epic double disc album. We haven't done that yet, and that's a great way to do something epic with the band. And I think there was the side with Neil Morrison and Pete Trewavas who are more... maybe we could cut the fat a little bit and make a more abridged version that might hit better, and that might just work in a better form. And so there was a little bit of infighting, I think, based on those decisions. And basically the conclusion they drew was, well, why not both? Let's do both versions. Neil Morse helmed this more abridged version that he had an idea for, and Royna Stolt helmed this more expanded version that really included all the material they'd been working on into this big, massive double disc set. And to me, both versions are really great. And what's interesting about it is it's not just one is the cut down version of the other. They actually have different tracks on them. They have different versions of the same songs where there's different lyrics or different melodies. Different things are going on between the two versions, making them very separate and very interesting and listenable on their own. And so it really makes for two separate experiences for the album that are equally fun and equally interesting, which was a really interesting concept. And they have the ultimate version if you get the big deluxe box set version, which basically combines everything. And their new live album also combines all the tracks into that sort of ultimate makes version, which includes everything on it. So if you're a completionist or you like to hear everything that's on offer, that's a great way to go about it, is to get that ultimate version. But it's a really cool album. It feels like a continuation a bit from the Whirlwind. Maybe not totally in concept, but I think there's some shared DNA here that becomes apparent with some of the lyrical themes and things that you hear on this project. And the fact that it's a suite of songs, but they all basically interconnect into this long extended piece. There's so many fun moments that I really enjoy. There's great vocal harmonies. They all get a chance to sing and to explore their vocal range. You get some a cappella sections, like the beginning of the second disc of Forevermore is this a cappella opening. You get these great epic moments. You get these great instrumentals that are a little bit quirky and different that I think Royna Stolt has a lot to do with, like in Owl Howl, and also the Belong stuff that comes later. I also really like the slower track of Solitude and getting a chance for Pete to shine on vocals. I think it's a great little respite during that second disc. I love The World We Used to Know, which is only on the Forevermore edition. A great instrumental powerhouse of an opening leads to a really cool song that has Royna Stolt helming the vocals. So it runs the gamut between so many different things, and it has a really big epic conclusion. So it's like everything I would want in an album, and the only reason it ranks lower is just because of the classic nature of their first 3 releases that I just have so ingrained in my brain that it's hard for a new album to come in and replace the memories that have been burned into my mind from those first 3 albums that are 3 of my favorite albums that I've had throughout my prog career, throughout my listening as a prog fan. So it's hard to break through, but I think it's a really fun album that has so many cool sections. And maybe it's marred slightly because I feel like that maybe there was a little bit of friction behind the scenes about this album. The fact that there was multiple versions and they couldn't come to a consensus. Even though it's a fun concept and you get all this music and it's fun to explore all these different things, I almost wonder if this is what led a little bit to the end of the band, where the tour just was the final moment, and they were like, yeah, maybe this is something we need to put on ice for now and isn't something to continue with. And so part of me wonders if there was some friction that carried over into their tour. It's all just speculation, and they seem like on good terms and very friendly and amicable. So I'm not trying to stir the pot at all. I wonder in the back of my head, and that's why maybe this album is a little bit soured in comparison to others. But I'm saying that in the slightest of ways because it's still one of my favorite albums, especially that's come out in the last few years. and really ranks highly in my estimation. It's just such a fun experience, a great ride, and I really enjoy it. At number 3, I have SMPTE or SMPT, however you want to say it, from 2000. And this is their first album. This is where they broke onto the scene, and you can tell a little bit that they're uncertain what they're about to do. It's them experimenting a little bit, but I think they come onto the scene about as fully fledged as you can be as a band. You know, they start out with this giant epic of All of the Above, which really gives you all you need to know about the band. It has this cool instrumental intro that showcases all of them on their instruments. It has that Yes style sound in a lot of sections, has a big epic conclusion, has all these cool sections in between. There's a bit of jazziness in some of the playing at some certain points. There's times where it goes a bit more laid back and it becomes a bit more of a ballad type feel, and there's some energy and the fun, and it's a really cool track that really runs the gamut between all the things you can experience with Transatlantic. And that's one of the things that I like to highlight when I'm talking about bands like this and why I love them so much, is just that the music's fun. It's adventurous, it's fun to listen to. You just can't help yourself but smile as you listen to all these sections come about, and it just makes for a really exciting listen that never drags, is never boring. Even though you got these long extended pieces, to me it flies by because it's just so entertaining to listen to. We All Need Some Light is the classic ballad track on this album that's just beautiful, never gets old. It's one of those like timeless classics that I think will always stand the test of time, and you get a fun little, almost Beatles-esque kind of fun romp with Mystery Train. My New World is a very underrated epic, mini epic perhaps, with a lot of Roy Stolt touch on it. I really enjoy this track quite a bit. And then probably my least favorite of the tracks here is Inhaled 'Twas an I, but it's an interesting cover of, I believe, a Procol Harum track, so I'm not as familiar with the band and the original track, so maybe that's partly why it didn't hit as hard for me as the other tracks do. But it's still a fun listen, and it's fun to hear the band explore and do things in that lane and try to pay tribute to some of their favorite music as well. I neglected to mention it, but I also really love Kaleidoscope's bonus disc that has a bunch of covers on it that showcases a lot of their influences and is a fun exploration into a lot of different cool music also. So they're prone to do that, and they showed that right off the bat with this first album. But yeah, this is just such a great album, and for it to be their debut just showcases the level that these guys are playing at, because it's just really dialed in, and it's just really already off the charts and sounds really great. And I just really adore this album. I think it's just really a great statement of modern progressive rock, and really is one that I never tire of, that I could listen to over and over and just always have a smile on my face and enjoy. So it was a legendary album, and a landmark album in my discovery of progressive rock, so I have to award it here at number 3. Number 2, I'm putting The Whirlwind from 2009. Another album that I have a really strong connection to because of my memories with it. I basically had written off Transatlantic as a band that would never come back again after Bridge Across Forever. Neil basically left the band, left Spock's Beard, and was off on his own solo path. So I'm like, okay, Neil Morse is just going to do solo music from here on out, which I enjoyed his solo music, but it was a little bit of a bummer to know that I'd never witness Transatlantic live or never be able to anticipate a new release from Transatlantic, because when I got into the band, their first 2 albums were basically already out, and I was exploring them after the fact. So once I was really getting into this music, that's when I discovered that the band had basically disbanded, and I was really disappointed. I'd never see them live. I'd never be able to anticipate and be excited for a new album. But then I got this news that they were coming out with something new in 2009, and it was just like Christmas to me, because this was my favorite band that I had written off, that I had figured would never make new music again, and here they are making a great new concept album that was like a single piece of music over the course of a 80-minute disc, and I was just so much anticipating this. There was no way it could live up to the crazy hype that I had in my brain of what this could be like. And at first, I'll admit that it didn't quite live up to that hype. When I first was listening to it, I was just so so expecting something magical and special and perfect that I was like, oh, it's really good and really fun and really enjoyable ride, but is it as perfect as I was hoping? Maybe not. Maybe there's sections that are a little slower, a little weaker. Does it have the big prog highlights of their first two albums? But as I listened to it more and more, its magic got uncovered and unfurled, and I started to realize how great this album is. And every piece started to stand out in its own way, and it has a great flow to it. I really like all the pieces, and Rose-Colored Glasses, right in smack dab in the middle of the album, is one of my favorite pieces of music ever. It just has such an epic build to it. Neil is full on with his emotional power on this track. You get some epic guitar soloing from Roy Stolt that's just raising this into the heavens, and it's just such a magical moment. And being able to witness this live even brought it to another level for me. And I just love the run of tracks that precedes after that just really has fun. There's some jazzier moments. There's some really heavy prog moments. Lay Down Your Life has a big later period Beatles energy. Is It Really Happening is one of my favorite sections. It's a slow, like almost atmospheric Pink Floyd type build into like crazy progressive rock insanity towards the end that just keeps getting faster and faster and repeating till you're practically breathless with the energy that they've performed that with. And it's just really an incredible album that just has become addictive as I've listened more and more, and really now ranks as one of my top favorite albums of all time. It's in that conversation for me of like top 5 favorite albums of mine of all time. So, and like I said, part of what opened it all up for me is seeing them live. That was the other piece to this puzzle, is they toured this album and they played near enough to me that I could go with my friend once again. And that was like one of the most magical concert experiences I've ever witnessed. And they played the whole entire thing live, and it just came across so well. The parts that I thought were weaker came to life and were now some of my favorite highlights of the record, like The Wind Blew Them All Away. I just really, really fell in love with the Whirlwind, and it's just meant something special to me ever since. I think it's a great concept. It really boils down a lot of Neil's most meaningful lyrics into this really interesting allegory and expression, and so it's just a really magical, special album that I just really adore, and I think is really special, and really stands head and shoulders as one of the best examples of modern progressive rock by 4 incredible, top of their game musicians. But there's one other album that I put as the number 1 on this list, and perhaps my number 1 favorite album of all time. This is Bridge Across Forever from 2001. And I just love the way this album's structured. It's simple. It's 2 epics that bookend this album. You get a shorter epic in the middle and then a nice cool down ballad. Just the perfect structure to me for a progressive rock album. Duel with the Devil is such a great opener. Opens with those strings that are so iconic, and when I hear those I just melt immediately, and then it moves into this really energetic, fun, interesting opening with some really bombastic sections. And the band is on fire. They're playing great. They move from section to section seamlessly. It all fits together. You get all of the elements that I've been talking about, the great musicianship, the emotional vocals, the playful homages to progressive rock past. It's just all baked in, and there's this sense of great melody and catchy songwriting that influences it all as well and makes it have hooks and makes it memorable. So all of that boils down together to become my favorite slice of music that exists out there. Sweet Charlotte Pike is like a Beatles homage. It's like they put together all these disparate sections from different things they worked on and strung them together very much like Abbey Road Side 2, and it just works perfectly. All the sections are fun, and it links a lot of the tracks together to make this feel more conceptual, because they have pieces that are a bit called back in Stranger in Your Soul, so it just makes for this really linked thematic feel. Bridge Across Forever is one of their most heartfelt, sweet ballads, one of the best that Neil has written. I really love that piece of music. And Stranger in Your Soul is one of my favorite tracks of all time. I think it's just brilliant. It really is meaningful. The lyrics really hit home for me. I really think that Neil puts his whole heart and soul into this. I think it has one of the most epic, grand endings of any prog song that exists, at least in the more modern era. And I just think it should stand up toe-to-toe with the classics of the genre, with the Yes, Close to the Edge, and Gates of Delirium, and The Supper's Ready from Genesis, and Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. I think this should belong in the same category as all of those grand pieces of music. It's just so well done and has so many great moments and sections, and just the ending always grips me. I just can't help but get emotional when I hear the crescendos and hear the big ending and the big finale. So that's the music that speaks to me, and I think all these elements are what I'm really looking for in music and what I'm always searching for with all these new bands that I'm talking about on the channel and so forth. I'm looking for a band that really celebrates their heritage and their influences, that is adventurous and fun to listen to, that has moments of heartfelt emotion and connection, and that is able to play their butts off and just has that musicality and that virtuoso musicianship. That all coming together into this massive stew of great stuff with all the hooks and all the great songwriting that Neil Morse and Ronan Stolt bring to the table here brings a magical combination of things that is hard for me to top. You know, there's not much out there that I've heard that really excels to these same heights. So I know that's I'm probably being crazy hyperbolic here, but this is one of my favorite bands, and I think they deserve the love and the attention, and this is my way to honor them and their career and their catalog, because this may very well be the end for them. So I wanted to make sure to pay my respects and do a show featuring them. So hopefully you enjoyed my thoughts here. Hopefully it wasn't too gushing and too overlong. But if you're a fan of the band like I am, I think you probably have a lot to enjoy here. And if you're not, maybe this will inspire you to seek out some of this music, because it's all really brilliant and really fun to explore and to listen to. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Hopefully you enjoyed this list. Please let me know in the comments your lists and how you would rank these. I would love to hear it. And I hope you guys just have the best of times out there. All right, enjoy the music, everybody. Bye.